tough time without y'all. So we're delighted to have the band back together and get to spend a couple of hours this morning talking about what technical assistance looks like for the sort of phase two of this exciting project. Um, so everybody's getting in and getting settled. We'll pull up the slides and go over kind of some of the initial pieces of today. Madeline, you want to pull up slides?
I am screen sharing. Can you see?
I
Oh,
can,
that
but
is not, that's not what I meant to screen share. Let's see here. Reshare just the slides. Thank you. There we go.
all right.
Can you
So
see the
welcome.
slides?
Yep, looks great.
Great.
Welcome, everybody, to Factory Produced Housing Advisory Committee meeting number 6. We're delighted to be here with you. Can I have the next slide? We're just do our welcome and intros. We have the next slide. We are your faithful project team, the folks from Echo Northwest, the folks from NOAA, folks from Communitas Planning, and OHCS. If everybody here could put your name, your pronouns, your organization, and your connection to the industry or to this project in the chat, that would be great. We might have forgotten some of our good friends from this winter. And while we're doing that, we'll get into some of our mandatory preamble. Our agenda today is welcome and intro. We'll disclose our conflicts of interest, if y'all remember that process. We'll have an overview of the final funding criteria that OHCS landed on that you all were so instrumental in helping to craft. And then we'll talk about phase two. We'll give a sense of kind of what the mandate from the bill language is, what our project team has been thinking, and then spend quite a bit of time getting y'all's feedback and thoughts on the various pieces of what we could put together and how it can be most supportive of the industry over the next year and change. And then we'll do a bit of closing and next steps. We anticipate that we'll take the whole time, but in case we move briskly through the discussion, people may make it a little bit of a time lottery at the end. We go to the next slide, Mel. Our goals today are to recap phase one, be like, here's where we were, here's where it landed, and hear from OHCS how things are going to proceed a bit from here, and then really focusing on understanding and co-creating what the work looks like for technical assistance in phase two. This is one of 2 meetings where we'll be talking about that, so a lot of this is sort of early brainstorming and socializing ideas and getting folks kind of the juices flowing and thinking about what it could look like. Then we'll have another where we kind of tighten things up and make the more concrete plan going forward. Next slide, Mel. Folks, remember these friends are public meeting laws. Oldies but goodies. We also, please note that we're recording and we will use AI to help capture notes from follow-up. Next one. These are our friends around how we're going to show up for each other in the space. You all were so terrific and generative and not at all on the wrong side of these, but it's good to refresh ourselves, staying present and avoiding multitasking, avoiding jargon or acronyms, and really communicating to be understood by a wide audience. Taking space and making space for all to contribute, being mindful of how much air time you do or don't take up. Expecting and accepting non-closure if discussions don't conclude or don't conclude tidily. Addressing differences intentionally and respectfully, being mindful of the current political and economic context. And remember that we're all working toward the same goal, which is centered work around humanity and affordable housing for folks in our state. Thanks, Emma. All right, now for an old favorite, the disclosures of the conflicts of interest. Go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. So these are slides you've seen before. We're doing them at every meeting if you don't recall. I don't know if Emily asked, but if you're not a member of the advisory committee, can you please add guest to your name in your rename yourself that includes guest? We would really appreciate that. And as a reminder, you're in a listening role here if you're not an advisory committee member. So we would appreciate just leaving the airtime for our members. So here we are with conflicts of interest. OEGC, as you recall, advised that you all are considered public officials, but due to the layered nature of this committee's charter, you only have a potential conflict, not an actual conflict of interest, where, a financial impact is possible but not certain. And that just requires us to verbally disclose in each meeting your conflict of interest, and then we can proceed with discussions. We will do that on your behalf because we gathered these from you a while ago. Um, so if you didn't send yours, or if you're new to the committee, please add it to the chat. And these are some examples. So we will run through the two main categories: people who work for firms who might be part of a development team who would apply for the FPHS set aside, or people who work for firms that supply labor or materials to a firm supplying. These are considered our main conflicts of interest. With that, I will go ahead and read out from my list. And you all don't need to say anything, just as a reminder. So for people on development teams who might apply for factory produced housing set-asides, we have Anna McKay from Short Stack Housing, Ernesto Fonseca from Hacienda CDC, Gus Chachas from GCT Land Management, Jacob Fox from Homes for Good, Christy Willard from the Housing Authority of Malheur and Harney County, Laura Bennett from the St. Vincent de Paul Hope Factory, Lucinda Taylor from Habitat for Humanity of Lincoln County, Lydia Slocum from Northwest Housing Alternatives, Marge Caffarelli from Lit Homes, Mike Steffen from Walsh Construction, Nate Ember from Inkbuilt, Stuart Emmons from Emmons Design, Rita Haberman from the Department of Environmental Quality, Stephanie Hooper from Age Plus. Is there anyone else whose name I didn't call who could have a potential conflict of interest in this category? Okay, hearing none. People who work for suppliers to firms who might apply for the factory produced housing set aside includes Alex Connect from Pacific Wall Systems, David Qualls from Par Lumber, Kendra Cox from Blazer Homes, Nathan Young from Mods PDX, Stephen Zog from Zog Timber, although sometimes Tobias is here, Darren Grecken from Green Canopy Node. Anyone else fall into this category who we didn't name?
Yes, Marge Caffarelli, Lit Homes.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will step into the final funding criteria. So I'm going to pass the mic to Talia.
Great. Thanks so much, Madeline. Well, first, I just wanted to thank everyone for all the work that you did over the past several months. And I know we've had a little break, a little breather between that sprint of work, but you just brought so much generosity of time, thought, and insight to get us to where we got to with being able to launch the application, which was very exciting. And we learned a lot through the process of hearing your feedback and having conversations. And I know we didn't always land at a yes or no, black or white criteria, but I think the gray areas that you brought to light were extremely helpful. And then also we saw some really resounding agreement on certain things. So that was a learning process in itself. So where we landed was that we developed, you all at the end of your the last phase of work together were presented a final criteria list from the team here, and OHCS took that, and we had to get a little more granular in how we were going to evaluate the criteria. So we still landed with the eligibility criteria. So what you like the basic baseline eligibility that you need to meet LIFT program requirements, and then some more OHCS imposed criteria mixed in with some thoughts from this working group around readiness and viability. And so both those are pass-fail threshold criteria. And then we have our prioritization or scored criteria, and that ended up with about 6 different places where we'll score applicants, and that will kind of be the tiebreaker or the ranking of applications. And then we'll take that and we'll take all the rankings, we'll put it through this other portfolio balancing criteria that makes sure we have a diverse group of projects. And I'm not going to go in depth on any of these criteria, but I'm just going to speak to them super broadly and briefly and happy to answer any questions. But let's see, the scored criteria or the evaluation of the scored criteria, in that we tried to walk a really fine line of giving you information about what we want to see in your answers, so being somewhat prescriptive, but then also leaving it open for you to tell us what we don't know yet. And so there's some level of flexibility, and a lot of those scored questions, or some of the narrative-driven scored questions, we leave the onus on the applicant to give us the evidence that to back up the answer that you're giving. So we really put it out there for you to tell us why you think your project is cost effective or replicable, or some of the other, or using materials that are non-traditional or have strong climate impact. So a lot of the evaluation will we're asking for hard proof, but also we're asking you to describe and teach us in your answers. And then I just want to call out another thing in the scored criteria. The top two scored criteria are cost effectiveness and time savings with your project. And what we heard resoundingly from you all is, yeah, it's a given that these projects are going to save time. We can do this faster. And that should just be an expectation. And so, for that time savings, we're looking at how there are time savings in the whole project, not just in the factory production timeline. And then I will note that, we heard a lot of conversation about how it might be too early to show cost effectiveness of this work. And that comes when you reach scale. And while that still is a very highly scored criteria relatively to the other criteria, we have a bonus way for you to earn back points if you're not yet there to showing cost effectiveness. And also just remember that you're in the same pool as everyone else. Everyone's in the same continuum of readiness and readiness to show cost effectiveness. So don't feel like we're asking you to show millions and millions of dollars of savings before you're actually ready to. We know it might be early on, and we are, as an agency, we are facing pressure to really lift up these projects and show that they are the solution to doing affordable housing faster and cheaper. But that doesn't mean that you should be pressured to get there before you're ready to. So those are just some notes on where we landed with the criteria, but Madeline put in the chat where you can find our scoring rubric. I really urge you to read it before you fill out your application. And everything you need for the application is up there, including an informational webinar that OHCS did about it a couple weeks ago. And I know many of you were there, so thanks for showing up and asking good questions. And we have FAQs as well up there. And so I just want to shift to where we're at with the application. So it's open. It's open until Monday, the 6th. We'll close the applications. I think Britt put in the chat at 5 p.m. So the smart sheet will close. I just want to note something here. This isn't a make or break for anybody, but someone reached out and we noticed that there was an error in the sources and uses part of the workbook. It wasn't calculating the gap accurately. So we've posted a new workbook on the website. It's the only thing that's changed is some small places in that tab. So if you haven't started your workbook yet, if you can upload the new workbook that's on our website, if you are applying, of course, that would be greatly appreciated. If you're already about to press submit and you use the old workbook, don't worry about it. We will do some back end work to make it work. So that's a quick note. So we're excited to see all the applications that come in after the application window closes. We'll be working with an internal team of OHCS reviewers to make sure that all the applications received meet our minimum thresholds, so meet that eligibility criteria and the readiness criteria. And then we'll move into the scored criteria. And for that, we're looking for some experts, maybe one of you, or several of you. I think we're looking for up to 3 volunteers to help us do the scoring for those applications. So you'd just be looking at the scored criteria. You wouldn't have to read all the full-blown applications. And if you're interested, we will probably start with the scored criteria scoring 2 weeks from now. And we expect it to be about a 2-week window of time. And I can't say for sure how many hours of commitment that might be because I don't know how many applications we're receiving, but we'll do our best to try to make it streamlined for you. So if you are not applying for the set aside and believe that you don't have a conflict of interest, please and have the time, we'd love to leverage your expertise with the scoring, and you can reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the chat. And then let's see, last thing. Oh, okay. And we'd love to, if you are interested in volunteering, we'd love to hear from you by April 10th. So then we can schedule a kickoff meeting to just orient you to the scoring. And then last thing, I just wanted to offer, I know it was a really intensive process that we all went through to create the scoring criteria and all the project selection criteria. And then we did some work on the back end to get it to ready for launch. And we know that it wasn't perfect the way we did it. There are many ways we could have done it. And so we'd love if you're interested. This is totally optional, but just the chance to debrief on the application, give us feedback on how it went, things that you would have done differently. So if there's strong interest, we'll host something like that. If folks are like, hey, we did it, moving on now, that's also fine with us. So yeah, thanks for filling out the poll and letting us know. And Madeline, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thanks. I'll leave that poll open for a little bit. We have about half, couple more people need to respond. So we'll leave that poll open, but that's just certainly optional, giving you all the chance to close the loop essentially on this type of engagement with you, where your ideas went. If they didn't end up in the final criteria, if you're wanting an explanation for why, feel free to add that, add your interest, and we will schedule something with the smaller group. And with that, we are going to move into the main part of our agenda today, the phase 2 work. And so hopefully you all recall that when we gave you a charter, what was it, back in November? Late last year, the charter described kind of your role and the work the information, expertise, and work we would be needing from you over the course of this whole project. We talked about phase 1 being that intense solicitation process and the funding criteria, and we got through that by the end of January, as you all remember. But there is a phase 2. So we have some bullets here that this is just like a slide that we used in the very beginning of your role here on this committee. And this third last bullet is guiding the development of and the provision of technical assistance for the funded projects. So that's what we're going to be launching into today. This slide shows the types of technical assistance that are referenced directly in the bill. And we can pop the bill into the chat if anyone is interested. This is a little bit jargony language, but it really talks about 4 types of technical assistance, and we've kind of categorized them, and we have some slides here to demonstrate what we're expecting out of you all and how we think you all can help shape this portion of the work. But generally, there's a category about sending technical assistance to the recipients of funding directly. The bill recommends, how do they navigate regulatory frameworks, get their interim and longer term financing settled, talking about this technical specifications, and talking about compliance with LIFT. So that will be really just be of the members of the parties that are funded. What do they need? What do they need to get to successful closing? Have they ever used LIFT before? Et cetera. So that will be a little bit ad hoc depending on that cohort's needs. The bill also talks about transferring knowledge and having industry success beyond the funding recipients. So we are going to share with you some ideas today, and the bulk of our time today will be talking about what types of TA you think would advance this industry, what types of resources, libraries, events, et cetera, would be helpful to move the Oregon factory-produced housing forward. Section E talks about consumer awareness and showcases and kind of that other types of industry support with tours or showcases or events, and also the goal to build a constituency moving forward and moving this industry. And Section F talks about work that we can be doing to identify ongoing funding should the legislature want to fund factory-produced housing in a more long-term way. So we're going to talk about all of this today. Generally, there's these different categories. So we've recategorized it into generalized TA. We're considering that to be written research, a resource library, perhaps a membership directory, or if an opt-in contact list. Types of information that would be widely available to the industry and would overcome obstacles, how to talk about factory-produced housing, how to demonstrate its advantages. We heard from you all at the very beginning of this process, and we'll share some of that as well on the next slide, about some of the barriers to this industry or what could help unlock this industry. And so we want to revisit that information you all provided and then have your help advancing it forward. That specialized TA would be for the funding recipients, one-on-one assistance or small group kind of cohort style assistance. And then expertise sharing in the workshops, panels, and webinars that are, again, open to the general public. So I'll spend a minute on this slide because we're trying to clarify how you as this advisory committee, what your role is in providing assistance to us to provide assistance to the industry, right? You all are experts and lived practitioners here. So we want to make sure we're tapping into your areas of expertise, your knowledge, and your prior experience getting these projects to completion. So we will continue meeting with the advisory committee. We will continue having public meeting laws. And so this is open. These are recorded. These will continue to go on the website. We want you to advise on all of the aspects of TA. We understand some of you may be applying for funding. Some of you may receive funding. We don't know that yet. And that will all shake out. We will know that by the time we might not know that by the time we meet next, but we will know that very soon. We want you to advise on the solutions to the barriers that you identify and that you're continuing to identify in this work. And to the extent you're paying attention to the industry and you know about research and you know about people from other states or other parts of the industry that you want to highlight, we want to tap into your knowledge. So we envision that you all can help us identify within the cohort of funding recipients. This is that specialized TA. This would be sort of a private cohort of the funding of the people who receive funding. So this is that small group and one-on-one assistance. And the real goal here, as we've said all along, is for these projects to get to a successful project close and to successfully advance the industry and demonstrate the applicability of factory-produced housing and affordable housing. So we would anticipate your advice. If there's a funding recipient who has a very unique need and one of you can provide that expertise, we would welcome that. We also definitely want to tap into your expertise for that wider industry support and that generalized TA and that expertise sharing. So these would be the public access, the shared learning library, webinars, tours, showcases, conference sessions. We have a lot of discussion ahead of us today to talk about your ideas here or thumbs up to some of the ideas we're going to share. But that's where the advisory committee would continue meeting and continue advancing the resources available to the wider industry. A quick note on the timeline of this. This is the slide we used at the very beginning of this process. But we are through the legislative session and through that solicitation process. So we're going to spend the rest of this year building out technical assistance and also providing it to the funded cohorts, building out that resource library, conducting any primary research that you all are interested in having us researchers do. And then all of that will be packaged up in the legislative report that goes to the legislature by, I believe, September of 2027. So we're in it for the next little while. And we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of resource and firepower here at your disposal. So this is kind of the summary slide. It happens now through June 2027. Today, we're here to solicit early ideas and get your thumbs up, thumbs down on some of the things I've just shared verbally here. The next bullet, April 16th is the Housing Oregon Conference proposal submission deadline. Excuse me on that. It is not the conference. The conference is in September. But we are very interested in getting your take on whether or not we should have a session there, whether we should have example products there. And we have an upcoming deadline to submit a proposal session description that we'll want to talk about today. Our next meeting with you all is on May 6th. So we would be refining our list of ideas, including the timelines, resources, names, research outlines, research questions, et cetera. And that is to work towards submitting a technical assistance plan to OHCS by the end of May. So we've staggered this meeting here to get some brain juices flowing, and then in May to revisit the highest voted ideas, and then submit a formal plan to OHCS. And then beyond that, we'll implement. We'll do the research. We will meet with you all. We will meet with that cohort, and we will implement the technical assistance. So I will be passing it back to Emily. We have a Zoom whiteboard we'll be sharing with you all, and I will do that in a minute.
All right, thanks, Madeline. That was a lot of info thrown at folks. Maybe we take a deep breath and have a pause if anybody wants to drop a question in the chat or anything that was covered so far in terms of all those logistics and kind of the charge from here. Happy to answer that for folks. And then, as Madeline mentioned, we're going to go into sort of a more dialogue-based activity around kind of thinking around about the details and the content that we would like to have covered in the TA process over the next several months to a year. All right. Do we go to whiteboards now, Madeline? Right, chatting about barriers. Okay, so if folks can remember all the way back to meeting 2, which was my first meeting with y'all, we discussed what was currently sort of constipating progress in the industry, particularly as we talk about sort of this moving of factory produced housing towards affordability and the moving of affordable housing towards factory produced. From either direction, what was sort of holding back progress, especially here in Oregon? And from what you said, we heard a lot: cost of development, timeline of things, developer expertise and availability, and final product requirements, with a lot of nuance within there. And from that list, we think that TA can help address kind of quite a bit of that by creating a list of general contractors and design firms that specialize in this work, general contractor familiarity with the process and how to budget and price it, education on the various components and advantages compared to stick-built, mentorships and partnerships, kind of across development teams or with other interested parties, helping with finance challenging on payment timing, lender concerns, helping potentially work out those kinks, or identifying financial partners that are excited to help promote the industry, and the compatibility of state and jurisdictional permitting processes, which is, to all but the most technically minded of us, pretty mind-numbing, but so important. Don't have to tell you all how critical some of those nuances can be when you're looking at developing projects. So we think that that the ongoing TA can actually help address an awful lot of this, and that's our goal. Go to the next slide. All right, so we're gonna walk through a couple of Zoom whiteboards if folks remember. You kind of like grab your little sticky notes and you can put emojis and just have a whole little dialogue amongst ourselves. We're also, once I introduce them, happy to take folks making comments verbally or dropping them in the chat. So this is really focused on what types of technical assistance seems the most helpful to you. And you can answer this sort of for you personally, what you think would be interesting, or what you think would be helpful to the most helpful to the field in general. Maybe you are an expert on it. Maybe you want to help other people understand it. We're sort of both in answering this sort of twofold for you and from where you sit, but also just in terms of the general industry and the barriers that we just discussed. If you're stoked about somebody else's idea or topic, give it a thumbs up or some emoji response. And if you want to go all the way down to the detailed level of like, make sure we put this on there, or here's an industry group that I think would be helpful, or I would love to hear from this person, or here's a prepackaged panel idea that is the best and I'm happy to help with. You can go to any level of detail. You can also just be like, I want to know about fire harm reductions in this industry or whatever. You could put it there too. Any questions? Okay, and I think we
I
can.
have shared the Zoom link in
Oh
the
yeah,
chat. I will stop sharing my screen and I see some people buzzing around there. I can also share my screen with the Zoom whiteboard. And if folks can't access it for some reason, they don't have a Zoom account or don't know their password, feel free to keep using the chat and we will populate ideas for you.
yeah, Stephanie, what's up?
I just something to keep in mind is the technical assistance that already exists within OHCS and the other technical assistance initiatives that are underway for in-housing. And so do you want us to not worry about that right now and we can always absorb those into what's existing? Like I'm thinking about accessibility. I'm thinking about um the lift, how to help people get through the lift process. Those are things that may already be underway.
Yeah, but if you think they're relevant here, Stephanie, like go ahead and refer to them. That helps us to think about the linkages between them, or how maybe a specialty session about the crosswalk between factory produced housing and those other pieces of TA or topics. Great, put them on there.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting, I don't know if OHCS folks want to chime in here, but any of the TA that OHCS provides to their generally funded recipients of any type of funding, that will still be applicable here. But that is not going to be specific to factory produced housing or talking about construction or talking about site design or any of that. So that's where this will step in and will bridge any of that gap between kind of the typical sort of narrow focused TA that OHCS typically provides all the time and TA that will really make sure that these projects are successful and get to close and also advance the industry. So it's meant to be as comprehensive as we can get.
Thanks, Madeline. Folks can see if you're in the whiteboard, there's a kind of a whiteboard for public webinars. So this can be, an interview with a single, expert or producer. It can be a panel discussion. It can be, any other format that feels, it can be a virtual site visit, anything that you think would be interesting and supportive. And on the next one, we have the resource library. So this is everything from existing resources, and there's a lot of great stuff out there on this, to things that you think would be nice to have, but you're not sure if it exists yet. Maybe it's a crosswalk between all of the Oregon building codes. Maybe it's excuse me. Maybe it's a handful of case studies for Oregon specific developers. Maybe it's how this works as a nonprofit or a community land trust. Anything that you think would be helpful to include in the resource library, whether it exists or not, we would love to know about it. And then
I am screen sharing in case folks don't have access to the Zoom and they want to watch. or add things to the chat. And I just want to note, like, to use an emoji, you click on something and you hit the add emoji to give it a thumbs up or a heart or something like that. You can grab a sticky from the pile or kind of just, I think, right click and find a new sticky as well. And if you are getting dizzy with all of the guest arrows pointing around, you can turn that off. And by hitting this down arrow here in the upper right hand corner and turn off collaborator cursors. I want to highlight that for anyone who does not like seeing that. I'm
I
going to
like
do
it.
it
It kind
for
of reminds me of
you.
Galaga.
Like it?
Doesn't it seem like an old school arcade game a little bit? All right, folks are making good progress. And for this one that Madeline's hovering over now, the proverbial other board on the right, there's ideas in there like the conference at Housing Oregon, a session or a showcase. If there are other conferences or group learning opportunities or gatherings that we should have on our radar that you think would be good to have a presence at, please pop that in there. If you're interested in tours or site visits, and just in general, or if you have an idea for one or would like to host one, definitely put that in there. If there are videos that whether they're instructional or sort of promotional, any kind of multimedia that seems like it would be exciting. If you want to pitch a best practices tour, um, you can pop that in there. Any outside of the box ideas. We're looking for anything that would be supportive in reducing some of the barriers that we've collectively identified to this industry. Nice. We see project summaries for completed projects with a basic description, photos, and costs. A resource list of available transporters in Oregon. Awesome. It does seem like we need an old-fashioned directory. Do you remember those? Love a directory. We have some folks advocating for research about how to talk about the benefits of factory produced housing. So like a narrative guide and communications guide. That sounds great. Makes good sense. I also agree that we should have a group trip to Switzerland. Whoever put that there seems like they are thinking exactly the way that I would like them to think. If there are other places, other geographies, hopefully with beaches, who folks think would might be really informative, put that in there. If there are areas of the country or the world where they really have a lot of this dialed, and we could do some learning, that would be great just for us to know as researchers and as we're building out the TA plan. While folks are continuing to put their ideas on the whiteboards, does anybody want to share some of what they put down and maybe some of the thinking behind it? Who's feeling a little shy?
As far as verbally sharing, sure.
Great.
I will. I got lost in the whiteboard chaos there.
You got lost in whiteboard Galaga. It's all right, Alex.
I
You're back.
did, and I spent the first 5 minutes wondering why I have to manage my license that I swore I paid for 3 times last year. But anyway, so anyway, yeah. So I think that the big thing that I'm getting as far as phone calls from a supply side of this, and of course there's interest, and there is some awareness, not necessarily with my current customer base, but appears to be a few popping up that are rushing to make the deadline. So those folks, yeah, they really are clueless when it comes to factory produced housing, and those potential customers for us, and in helping the effort towards affordable housing has definitely been our mission since the start, and I think they really just don't understand it all. I had one guy send me a thing and said, "Oh, here you go. I've figured out all the panels, all the links, and everything." He's telling me this whole thing, and I'm like, "Well, you're doing more than you need to because we have all that." So I think really just having the access, and this whole whiteboard is speaking to that, and it's just really having the access for these applicants to understand what the industry does, right now, and what resources are here. And I think it's really the because a lot of them are just simply clueless. They see, oh, there's some money, great, I'm going to go after that, whatever that means. So, just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Alec. So really thinking that there needs to be a really baseline level of kind of 101 buildup of knowledge and understanding in terms of affordable housing providers around factory produced components and the existing industry.
Yeah, and I've heard this, these developers that are threatening to get out of their projects. There's a couple around here in the Jackson County area that were otherwise going to be affordable projects, or could have been, or have the potential still to be, but they've decided to step aside because of affordability of everything that's going on with the labor laws and all that. So that's really thrown a kind of a gooey mess into it all, with this idea that Boley's going to step in and start driving our wages.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah, and actually, Alex, if you don't mind maybe closing out of the whiteboard, somehow it looks like you've presented it and we can no longer edit it. I'm not the only one, I think,
Really?
experiencing this issue. Sorry about this, folks.
You're pirating.
How's that?
You're pirating the
There we
whiteboard.
go. I think that did it. Okay, thank you.
I guess you talk to the right people and you get that. That was pretty easy. I clicked in one spot and it was available to me to
Take
present,
over.
I guess. I was just trying to put a sticky note up on the damn thing.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Other
And yeah,
thoughts?
if anyone is having problems with the board or wants to post their comments in the chat, we can post them in the stickies as well.
Emily, this is Jacob. I can jump in. So we built our factory produced housing community in unincorporated Lane County, and the wastewater and kind of the well water supply system was just something we had no idea like how complex and challenging it would be. So in the array of technical assistance, I think you'll need access to folks that have expertise in, like I said, wastewater and then water, just regular drinking water as well.
Awesome. Helpful, Jacob. Thank you. Other areas that folks are seeing needs or want us to have a understanding of kind of where the general public is, where affordable housing is, where factory produced is. Yeah, Anna, go ahead.
Hey y'all. I'm so glad that we're starting to think about these things. And my comment is more on kind of the homogenization of reporting that we expect the teams to produce, which I think is, we might kind of emerge from this conversation with a rubric of the kinds of things we want to understand. But I think expecting the project teams to deliver the information that they're gathering in a consistent manner would be really beneficial, like something that's uniform. And I think to even take that one step further, if there were a designated person from OHCS or perhaps even this advisory committee who was responsible for like essentially auditing that list of things that, okay, we need to figure out, who did they use to transport? What was their timeline at the state level for permitting? All of these elements that would be beneficial for future teams to access. I think thinking of ways to kind of alleviate that burden from the project teams who will be like very focused on delivering a successful project would be something to consider.
Thanks, Anna. We love that point. And actually, the project team has been talking about building our expertise specifically in equitable evaluation, which is that sort of start to finish, ongoing, continuous learning, collaborative accountability scaffolding to do exactly that. Kind of as much as allow the project teams to be focused on what they're doing, but gather that wisdom and that learning along the way in a way that is a light lift for them, but gives us a very cohesive and consistent way to look at the projects across time. Awesome. Yeah, Marge.
I want to make a comment about the state factory produced housing permitting process. We just got 4 units permitted and we're submitting our stacked units, our stacked concept. And it was really efficient. It was really, really good. And we were all really impressed with how they communicated, how it was very timely, and so very different from California. And so I just wanted to say if there's anybody from that group on this call, thank you because we were really excited to work with them and really thought they were fantastic. So that's it.
Thanks, Marge. I mean, wow, you never hear a big kudos for a bureaucratic process. So we love to hear that almost as much as we love to hear we're better than California. It's probably the thing we love to hear the most.
Really efficient. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Marge. Actually, I'm curious, Marge, are there specific pieces where, man, it's just been a tangle and a hang up other places that were really quite streamlined in this most recent experience?
Well, the expectation, they give you a timeline of what, the expectation is for them to even begin looking at your drawings. And, the minute we submitted, they communicated, a lot of times in other places, and we've experienced this in Arizona and, in California, things will sit and you can't get anybody on the phone and you can't get anybody to return an email. And it was just the opposite. They were really, their communication was really amazing. And they were very efficient.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, very different than the black box of being like, is anybody at home?
Yeah, no,
Did
that's
you get my email?
No, it's really true. It's really true. And then you lose a week and then you lose another week and you lose another week. And we never felt like we were losing weeks. So it was really, really good.
Awesome. Love it. Love to hear it. Other reflections of things that are coming up for folks or things you wanted to share with the group or maybe contextualize what you put on the whiteboard a bit more? project team members, were there any curiosities as you look at the whiteboards where you want to make sure that we understand what folks are trying to convey, or see if we need a little background info or follow up on anything that's been included so far?
Well, I'll just offer that for those who gave a thumbs up to some of the showcases or tours or the conference session, if you following this meeting, we will send out the slides as I noted in the chat, but also kind of an offer to email us. We're going to need help. We're going to need experts if we're doing like a panel presentation. We're going to need products if we're doing a showcase. So your thumbing up does not, I don't think we can capture who did it. If we can, we'll try. But your participation doesn't stop there. We need to draw on you all, and so we will just want to look for actual volunteers, actual interest. You know, to the extent we can, we will carry the water on the submittal proposals and the legwork, but we'll still need support from you all. I just want to like mention that.
I wrote on the whiteboard, a directory of transporters, and I think I want to expand that also to include construction or set crews. My family's personal history is in manufactured housing, and it's kind of a specialized group of folks who kind of work on that. And I think that in order for these project teams to be successful, they need to know what resources lie in their area, so they're not outsourcing constantly.
Awesome. I think that's a great idea, the lists and directories. And we certainly will look to you all to help us build them out. So again, sort of building on Madeline's last comment, it'll be a group effort. If there are other lists of, Jacob mentioned water, wastewater and drinking water, new experts in nuance. If there are other just like types of folks or categories of folks or providers or subs or whoever that are really specialized here, that are tough to figure out who has quals in it and who doesn't in the state, add that too, because we want to know how many lists we should be making. I do love a list. Anything else folks want to share? Anybody else feel like they need more time with their whiteboard, with their Galaga character? I once almost missed a plane in Tallahassee because my boss was playing Galaga and she was going to beat the record on this ancient machine in the Tallahassee airport. And we were this close. I mean, they were going to like close the doors. And I was like, boss, we have to go. She was like, I can't. I'm going to beat the record. She did beat the record and we caught the plane. Best of all possible worlds. Okay, well, as always, it's an open door policy. If you think of something, oh man, I meant to add that, or this person would be a great panelist, or oh, here's a great resource that maybe you're not aware of. Please, this is like the most intensive of crowdsourcing of that type of wisdom is in this next couple of weeks while we're putting together the TA plan. So please email us, get in touch, anything that comes up that you weren't able to convey today. We're definitely interested in.
Really?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
I did put something in the comments. So I did give up access to my whiteboard. So I did put a comment there in regards to the public having access to. I have several, and I know several other people. And I'm not sure about offsite suppliers, but that have shared and created pre-approved construction documents it's now shared in 3 cities in my county. So Klamath, or I guess Klamath is Klamath County, but Ashland and Medford. And these are flat stack kits that we do, factory produced. And there is no access. And I spoke with the planners, and it's tough. Obviously, there's a conflict there, but just some sort of kind of state database or somewhere the cities can send, because the cities just call me and they ask if they can, and they started in Medford, and it's just kind of just taken off, and I haven't done a word of it. Haven't done any of it. It's all the cities doing it on their own. So just having some sort of database that I think that would be helpful for the public, because I know a lot of people that have been waiting for me to launch the ADU, and it's now's the time. So they don't have access to the accessibility of and understanding these things. I mean, obviously the internet. Anyway, 2 cents.
Great.
And if you need a Galaga machine, I have one for you.
Great. I knew this
I
was going to
do.
be a good call.
I just traded my neighbor for some tree work.
That sounds like a great
Really?
trade.
There's 2 of them. They're Galagas.
The
official
were
stand of
either of them
Galaga.
ever in the Tallahassee airport?
Might have been. I don't know.
Terrific. Thanks, Alex. Madeline or project team, was there anything else we were hoping to get from folks today on these topics?
I just plug for actual hyperlinks, actual names, actual resources. So Alex, I put in the chat, if you don't mind sharing the 3 cities you just referenced. We do want to get specifics because we'll follow your lead of what you've said here and on the stickies, but then we'll be starting with Google searches if we don't have that first step forward. So please get as specific as you can here today. So that's the only thing I would add or plug, Emily.
I guess just it seems like, yeah, you guys have all the materials that you have used or found or resources that you think are particularly useful, so we don't have to dig. That'd be great. Any things?
This is a lasting offer to send anything. The more specificity, the better. And to keep your eyes peeled just as you sort of move about the world in this industry. If you do see resources or you hear of experts, just sort of put those lenses on for how could this perhaps be built into the TA plan or the TA content. All right. Well, then I think we can do our last bit of wrap up slide and get folks almost an hour of time lottery back. What a delight. Okay, so our next meeting will be Wednesday, May 6th, just over a month from now, from 9 to 11. And we'll sort of drill down in some of what we've been able to collate and collect, and the sort of pre-architecture we've been able to build for what we think the TA might look like, and then kind of get everybody's thoughts, reactions, edits, feedback, and further specification in that spot. We anticipate that the meeting cadence for this TA phase will be about 6 weeks apart, maybe with some nuance. Monthly felt like a little much. Quarterly didn't feel like quite enough. If you have a hot take about that cadence, good, bad, or otherwise, please put it in the chat or let us know. But that's sort of what we're currently thinking. And also want to be thinking about how sort of readily available this is to potentially a broader group, especially because our goal is to support the folks who are awarded through this carve out, but also to support the industry sort of for large. All righty. Well, folks have other questions or anything else to offer for the good of the order?
Well, I just wanted to, sorry to bring up an additional topic while we're about to close, but I know we wanted to touch base with this group specifically about Housing Oregon, since proposals are due April 16th. Is there, I'll pause for others to chime in about that, but
Yeah.
I think we'd love to have more of a presence, whether it's through, physical units or a panel or something. And Bill, I know you have some thoughts too, so just wanted to use a little time to get more specific and gauge interest.
I think it's really great to present at Housing Oregon. I think the more you can socialize this program, the people that I've spoken to far and wide in Oregon think it's a great program. You know, the comments have been, oh, it's only 25 million, because you could do this everywhere. And it's this, 60 to 80% of area median income is what is missing in every community. And so I just think socializing it is a really, really good idea.
Yeah, and we had 3 people give a thumbs up on the sticky note, but only 2 were signed into Zoom, so we don't have names. So if folks can raise their hand digitally here, okay, so Stuart, thank you. Marge, great, thank you. We'll jot this down, and follow up with you all. We'll also put the call for follow-up in our email summary, but it'd be great. We don't have a concept yet. We can do a panel discussion. We could do that could be with the funded recipients. It could be with the advisory committee. This can, but doesn't have to be concurrent with showcasing products. But we think that's a good opportunity. As Marge kind of just talked about, there'd be a lot of people filtering through that conference. I'm assuming, I'm probably wrongfully assuming most of you have attended this conference before, but the Housing Oregon Conference is an affordable housing industry support conference. It's going to be held in Portland at the Convention Center, I believe. It's where it was last fall. It's every fall. And I think it gathers around 1,000 or 1,200 people by now. It's grown substantially in the last 10 years or so. But there's different tracks for kind of the building side, the asset management side, for homelessness, for resident services, property managers, et cetera, policy track. And so a great audience for folks who are interested in showcasing their products. Definitely something we're going to put in a session. So if anyone would be willing to be on a panel, well, and then again, if you want to showcase your product or if you want us to expand on the opportunity for a showcase concurrent with that conference, we can do that.
Can I chime in on Housing Oregon? So as the federal government did on the mall in Washington and then did little things like Blockable taking something to ULI, there is nothing better than having built prototypes at these conferences. And the only kick is that it costs money to transport and whatever. So if there was some way to help defray some of the costs for getting things transported and figuring out how to situate them in a parking lot or whatever, it's really it's the best way to show people what can be done in modular. And so that's one thing. And then I like panels better than single speakers. I just think they work better. And if one panelist is not the greatest, then that's okay, So and instead of having one person,
Drew's like, I can't deal with the dud that takes
right,
over the whole
everybody
conversation.
walking out. So I definitely think we should have a panel or panels of a really good group of people with a moderator. So like 5 people or something selected out of this group would be great.
I want to concur with Stuart about having real live product. We just sent a unit to Tucson and they are engaging the state of Arizona as well as multiple counties to come and see it because a few of these counties and a few of these cities have declared housing emergencies, and they just are blown away. I mean, it just lights them up. They can't believe, they love being able to walk through it because you can show them boards and pictures and, you can put a 20 page slide deck together. Nothing speaks to the issue or the product like the real thing. So I completely agree with Stuart.
I think one thing I would like to hear, I'm glad to hear that. I'm very interested in how many of the producers that are part of this group would be interested in having their product. And you don't have to say now, but please let us know as soon as possible. if we're able to make those arrangements, because it'll take a little bit of work to make all that space available, but we would love to do that if there is sufficient interest. And then I guess the other question is following up on Stuart's comment about financial assistance. That gets a little trickier just because budget issues, and then where do you draw the line as to whether who's a part of this cohort versus who's out there around the country producing, right? But it would be great to know also if your participation would be contingent upon needing financial assistance to get your product to the show. Those two questions, if people could let us know sooner than later, that would be incredibly valuable. And maybe Madeline is probably the most logical sort of recipient for that response.
And I would add that we can handle logistics. We would be the ones helping figuring out dates, times, who you need to talk to at the conference, all of the logistics of getting your product there. But yeah, as Bill says, like the financial side of that is a little trickier for us. But consider us we would be like event logistics help as far as that goes.
What are the dates for Housing Oregon?
Yeah, Deb helpfully pasted it in the chat. It's September 28th and 29th at the Oregon Convention Center. And the link is there in the chat as well.
And thanks, Madeline. Yeah, the money thing's a big deal. Transporting. And so I think we'll get a lot more participation if OHCS or somebody can go find some funds to help transport and set and whatever. And then the other thing is just it's not too early to figure out where to put them. So everybody loves parking, but we need parking spaces to put these modules, and I think it's well worth it.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. We need to line that up ASAP because it's already not very far away.
Love it. Who among us has not been enticed to buy something at IKEA because of the little live houses you can walk through, right? People love it so much. All right. Project team, is there anything else we need to cover before we send folks on their way?
Not anymore.
All right.
Thank you.
So if you have Housing Oregon interest and desire or their needs that we have, please communicate that to Madeline. Be on the lookout for these slide content sending to folks. If you have anything you want to add to the whiteboard, also ping Madeline. We're happy to add it. And keep having a think on this between now and our next meeting in early May. We'll see you all in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
I'm just reading comments.
I just saved the chat as well.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, great. I was copying and pasting them into my notes. Great job, everybody. That was really well handled and facilitated, and people seemed psyched. And so that was awesome. Really, really, really great job.
Yeah, I thought it was a great session.
Yay.
Lots of good info too. Lots of good input, I think, the stickies. So I think that's fantastic. We can really do a lot of work with that. And I think then we're going to probably need to think about how to build out some panels and sort of what the content would be. We can't really do that with a group of 30 people. So we probably need to get on that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think a set of things that are sort of even more granular for them to react to next time. And especially if we have some of those topical areas like articulated, they might be like, oh, so-and-so would be great for that or whatever. So we can start to crowdsource some of that specificity that's a little bit more content area or issue area specific.
At a minimum, I've sort of given a heads up to the Housing Oregon staff. And should we just tell them that, maybe they can cut us a little grace for time to build out exactly, but could we ask for 2 panels? Do we think I think we have enough content to easily do 2 different panels.
Yeah. One should probably be with the successful funding recipients is my guess, is like where they're at in the process. They're the inaugural factory produced housing funding cohort, where they are in their process, challenges or barriers they've come across, how they've overcome it, etc. And then maybe a separate would be, I don't know, like designing or the logistics of site building. Yeah, something
We
maybe
did
more
that, Madeline, with the
technical. Oh,
grantees last Housing conference. We did a panel that I facilitated, and yeah, that I think that's a great idea because people want to hear from them. They want to hear, what was your experience? What'd you learn? So I think that first panel at the very least is a great idea. And in step with what we've already done before. So
Should we submit the panel of 5 selected, or however many it is, seems pretty straightforward. We could even, OHCS could go ahead and submit that, and then maybe we submit one more placeholder, because I know it is, I don't know, maybe Housing Oregon has more leeway than just the April 16th deadline, but
yeah. I know I in the past have like squeaked a submission in and then said I'll have more details soon, and there is time. It creates headaches for the conference organizers, but I think we could also say that we are there's a bill that tells us to showcase this work, and we are statutorily required to present. That might give us a small leg up, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's useful. And I think it is talking about sort of the 3 branches of factory produced housing that people may not think of, right? Manufactured, panels, and modular, just introducing them. But I also think that, and maybe that can factor in, but I think maybe this sort of the factory produced housing 101, sort of the arc of a project, sort of, and you get the different players, and maybe get 1 or 2 factories, get a contractor that's helped install, maybe get a lender that had to deal with figuring out how to finance the factory production piece of it. And there's resources. They've done this in
like
California.
a case study. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And in California, I've stumbled onto a presentation at a conference that was like that. And I thought, well, that'd be pretty informative around the arc of a project.
Great. And I know, Bill, you had mentioned that price is probably the biggest factor in getting units or demonstration pieces on site. We certainly cannot use TA money for that. Did we decide?
Well,
no, we could use
could.
Well, Talia can answer that for sure, but I think we could.
My thinking is we could too, because the statute suggests a showcase. And if we need to, I mean, it'd be one thing if we were renting out the Oregon Convention Center ourselves to put on our own showcase. We're not doing that. So,
well, we'd probably have to rent the exhibition halls, though.
Sure. Okay. I just meant like it would be within the cards for us to host our own conference, and we're not doing that. And that would have material direct costs, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Talia, you guys are the grant funding contract administrators, so.
Yeah, say the original question again, Emily.
I was just wondering if we can use it to support transportation costs for folks that are bringing units, and if that is an acceptable use of funds, how we think about administering that, because that seems like
fairness.
Yeah.
I think, is there leeway in your contract to do that? Like, do you guys have the funds to do it?
I would need to take a closer look, but my assumption is, I mean, it's all going to be trade-offs. We could spend $100,000 doing primary research, or we could spend $80,000 and spend $20,000 on an event, so it's all just but direct expenses, I believe, are valid and within the purview of this contract and the goal of the bill, right? So
does anybody have any ballpark for what it would take to haul something from Southern Oregon to?
Yeah, we allowed Blazer to use some of their grant funds to transfer their unit to the Southern Oregon, Housing Oregon conference last September, and Caroline, 25,000, 20,000, something like that for the one unit.
Yeah, 20K. And a whole lot of logistics of trying to get into the building, one unit.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe
feel
that's not a good idea.
It's
renting a
well,
bus
and maybe there's some
could-
cost savings there. Maybe they did it, maybe I mean it's expensive to transport those little
Yeah.
fuckers, you know, they really are expensive.
And
So
cost of gas is not helping us right now.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
I mean,
You
gosh,
have to have a
maybe
special
it's-
license to drive them and all that stuff. Like, so it's skilled labor. It's like it's
Yeah.
all the things.
Is it an oversized load kind of? I mean, like it's a big deal. Yeah.
Well, maybe we
Maybe
can do
it's
cost sharing on it. Like we can
Yeah.
up the 10K if
I like that.
Right.
or something.
Well, I was also thinking like if we can only do one, is it the factory produced housing advisory committee member who's had perfect attendance, or like how do is there a prize? The best idea.
The lottery.
Yeah.
Contest, golden ticket.
Yeah. Is it conceivable, folks at OHCS, that there could be any resources anywhere else that could help sort of match if we're able to pull 20 grand out of our budget? Could you find a little additional money to help get some more units there or parts of units there?
I need to do a deep dive in our budget right now. I mean, we didn't hire a person for this, so there's some cost savings there. So I need to see how much flexibility there is. So that would be where it comes from, just the same pool that you all are drawing from. So I'll look. Our budget systems are months behind, so it takes a while to get an accurate picture. But I am also, Emily, I really liked your analogy of going into IKEA, and I think there is power in having a unit there. There's also so many factory producers in Portland, and renting a bus would be way cheaper than moving a unit.
Yeah.
So
I
we
thought about
could
a bus
do like
tour.
an add-on bus tour or something to housing.
Come a day early, stay a day late, something like
Yeah.
that. Half-day bus tour.
And then what about it seems like to me that we've gotten some resources for conference production through the TA program at OHCS. Would that be another feasible bucket to look at too, to sort of keep cobbling together a few dollars here and there?
Well, Caroline, Britt, maybe we can ask Kim, but I am pretty sure that all the GHAP TA funds are spent.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having low document recording receipts, which leads to low availability of those funds. But yeah, let us check with Kim.
So one of the people going back to the conference sessions, one of the people on the board put a suggestion for a factory produced track, which last year there was a track for modular CLT and mass timber, and they actually had 4 sessions that fell into it.
Okay.
So I think asking for 2 sessions would be totally reasonable, but I also think that we could probably suggest more.
Yeah.
Based on what happened last year. And I can put the info in the chat for you all from last year's.
And we don't know who else might be thinking about this in this subject area too, right? There could be others out there that they could fold in. And if we want to track, and I think we could easily build out 4 panels probably just based on the material we've covered over the last few months. Not that we would need to be a hog at the trough on that, but we could say we'll do 2 and we could fill out more if you want to do a whole track.
Or if they want to matchmake other proposals in this area with us, we're happy to patchwork it together.
They do matchmaking. I just know it's a pain for the coordinators.
Well, I went to 2 of those 4 sessions last year, and they were both over full.
Okay.
There's so much interest in this. I just think we really need to keep that going.
Before we hang up, I'm going to plug that we look at calendars and try to schedule a time just to meet specifically on this conference session. And it doesn't have to be everyone. So OHCS team, we have your blessing, right? Oftentimes when we do conference session proposals, we have to check with our client. Would you guys want to be on the panel, involved? Do you want us to just take the lead, or what? How involved do you want to be?
Britt, Caroline, feel free to chime in. I think it'd be great if you take the lead. Maybe we can be included in the one that's our grantee, the LIFT grantees.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense? Like we can
Okay.
plug that program as well. But yeah, it would be awesome if you take the lead on the others.
Okay. Great.
And not to be dismissive of Stuart's plea for financing of the factories, but I think Anna pointed out that the Mass Timber Conference is going on. I mean, I've been to plenty of conferences where there's models on display of things, and I'm pretty sure the conference didn't pay to have people bring those in. And if these are businesses in this business, you assume that they probably have some amount of resource set aside for this kind of marketing thing. So anyway, I just think we shouldn't dismiss the idea even if we can't come up with money.
Totally.
Would it make sense to have something a little more formal that folks are filling out? Hey, I want to come, and this is roughly what I think it would cost, and can I make it without or whatever? Or we just leave it a little bit more open-ended, Madeline, in your follow-up materials, and just assume?
Yeah, I'm thinking we might need something like a Google form, just a quick little like, yes, I'm interested. Here's my name and email. Here's a person at my firm you can talk to if it's not me. And yes, I'm interested in a product. Yes, I'd be interested in a panel. No, I can't help. No, I can't bring a product. Like, I think just getting a feel for that. And
Yeah.
if we send it out today or tomorrow, we can ask for responses back by like Wednesday, and maybe we can meet as a group Thursday, Friday next week and kind of keep this moving. I think for the purposes of the session description, we need to be convincing, we need to get selected, but just a name commitment, I think at this point is all we need. Like, or even we will have up to 3 members of our Factory Produce Advisory Committee, and here's the link of the membership on our panel. Like, ideally, we would have confirmed names, but oftentimes people have to swap out at the end anyway. And we did get 3 people who'd be willing to be on a panel, so we can list their names. But I think a formal like, hey, here's our follow-up from the meeting today. We really do need your help. Are you interested in bringing a product? Will you? Because it's going to require time on their part as well, time and effort, and potentially money. So getting that more firm commitment. So and then I would also, in that same email, or maybe even a secondary one, or same Google form, call for like literally resources and links and hyperlinks and research and names. And if we got a smattering of ideas and thumbs up on the webinars, we're going to need to structure those. We're going to need to get panelists for webinars too. So we did this brainstorming session today, and I think the next step is a written, okay, but are you willing to help?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it may be too, sorry to keep going back to this cost thing, but it could be that we would just offer 3,000 or 5,000 of an offset.
Yeah.
Right. And just so we limit our exposure per participant, and we can do that for X number of people. Let's start with the people who have participated in this group because they've invested time and sort of earned that right, maybe. Anyway.
That sounds smart to me, Bill. It's some amount of offset that like shows good faith support, but we're not footing the bill for the entire thing for what is a for-profit industry that, does, we're not asking them to eat their vegetables. All right.
Great.
Madeline, do you have
Okay.
what you need in terms of follow-up and next steps?
We got a calendar.
Yeah, calendaring. So I'll pull up. Emily, you're out next week.
I'm
is
in
that
South
right?
Carolina all next week, but I also I'm certain you all can
Yeah,
navigate
we can
without
move
me.
this piece forward without you. Yeah, Bill, Rachel, Eric, Deb, how does the morning of the 9th look, or the afternoon of 7th? How about, yeah, morning of the 9th?
Morning of the 9th is good for me.
Okay. Okay. Let's say like 10 o'clock. Deb, does that work for you? Deb is not here anymore. I'll see if that works for her. Rachel, is that good for you?
That works, and Eric's calendar is free at that time too.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, I'll schedule that.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Great day.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye. Bye.